The Galactic Defense Council chamber buzzed with the familiar sounds of a dozen different species conducting their daily business. Admiral Zexathara, a towering Corvani with chitinous plates covering his 8-foot frame, stood before the massive holographic display showing the Sol system, his 4 eyes focused on the small blue planet that had recently joined their galactic community. Earth's military capabilities are primitive at best, Zexathara announced to the assembled delegates, his voice carrying the clicking undertones typical of his species. Their projectile weapons are crude compared to our plasma artillery. Their armor is made of simple metals and ceramics. Most amusing of all, they still use what they call snipers, soldiers who hide and shoot from a distance with basic kinetic rifles. A ripple of laughter echoed through the chamber. General Vorthak, representing the crystalline Zalothians, chimed in with his melodic voice. "How quaint! Do they still throw rocks as well?" The humor wasn't malicious exactly. The various alien species had all evolved beyond kinetic weapons centuries or even millennia ago. Energy shields, plasma cannons, and quantum disruptors were the standard across the galaxy. The idea of a soldier lying in dirt with a metal tube that fired small pieces of lead seemed as outdated as fighting with sticks and stones. "Their application to join our peacekeeping forces is being reviewed," Zexathara continued, manipulating the hologram to show Earth's military statistics. "However, I'm afraid their technology gap makes them unsuitable for frontline operations. Perhaps they could serve in support roles, logistics, maintenance, food preparation." Commander Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force sat quietly in the designated human section of the chamber. Her jaw tightened slightly at the dismissive comments, but she maintained her professional composure. She had been expecting this reaction. Earth's technology was indeed primitive by galactic standards, but these aliens had never seen human ingenuity and adaptability in action. "If I may address the council," Sarah stood, her voice clear and steady. The chamber fell silent, more out of politeness than genuine interest. "Earth respectfully requests the opportunity to demonstrate our capabilities in a joint training exercise. We understand our technology appears outdated, but we believe our tactical approaches and human soldiers' skills might surprise you." Zexathara's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his people. "Commander Chen, while we appreciate your enthusiasm, our war games involve scenarios far beyond your current capabilities. Our enemies use energy shields that your kinetic weapons cannot penetrate. Our battles take place across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your snipers would be utterly helpless." "Perhaps a small demonstration then," Sarah persisted. "A simple marksmanship competition, your best shooters against ours." The suggestion caused another wave of laughter. Sergeant Major Krextar of the militant Thrakari stepped forward, his cybernetic enhancements gleaming under the chamber's lights. "I accept this amusing challenge," he growled, his translated voice carrying overtones of predatory confidence, "though I fear it will be over too quickly to provide proper entertainment." The Thrakari were known throughout the galaxy as the finest marksmen among all species. Their natural reflexes were enhanced by technological implants that allowed them to process targeting information faster than most species could even perceive threats. Krextar himself held 17 galactic records for precision shooting with various energy weapons. "Excellent," Sarah nodded. "We'll arrange for the demonstration on the training grounds tomorrow. I think you'll find it educational." As the council session ended and delegates began filing out, conversations buzzed about the upcoming exhibition. Most viewed it as harmless entertainment, a chance to see how the primitive humans would embarrass themselves before accepting their proper place as support personnel. Dr. Yixnella, the chief scientist from the peaceful Luminari, approached Sarah as the chamber emptied. Her bioluminescent patterns shifted to show gentle curiosity. "Commander, I hope you know what you're doing. The Thrakari take great pride in their military prowess. If this demonstration goes poorly, it could affect Earth's standing in the Council for years to come." Sarah smiled grimly. "Doctor, I appreciate your concern, but sometimes people need to see something to believe it." Later that evening, Sarah stood in her quarters aboard the orbital station, speaking into a secure communication device. The figure that appeared in the hologram wore the weathered face of a career soldier, his steel-gray eyes holding decades of hard-earned wisdom. "Master Sergeant Rodriguez, we're going to need our best for tomorrow's demonstration," Sarah began without preamble. "Ma'am, I've already selected the team," came the reply. "Staff Sergeant Martinez has the longest confirmed kill in the Corps, 2,300 meters with a .50 caliber. Corporal Wong specializes in rapid precision shooting. And we've got Private Thompson. Kid's only 19 but can put 10 rounds through a quarter at 800 meters in conditions that would stop most shooters cold." "Good. But Rodriguez, this isn't just about proving we can shoot straight. This is about proving humans belong on the front lines. These aliens have never faced an enemy that thinks like we do." "Understood. Ma'am, the team's ready. We've studied their weapons and tactics. Their energy-based systems are impressive, but they have limitations these aliens don't seem to recognize." Sarah nodded. "What's your assessment of their marksmanship capabilities?" "Honestly, their technology does most of the work for them. Auto-targeting, computer-assisted firing solutions, smart projectiles that self-correct in flight. It's all very advanced, but it's made them dependent on their systems. Take away the tech, and I'm not sure how well they'd perform. Tomorrow isn't about taking away their tech, though. Tomorrow is about showing them that sometimes the old ways work better than they think." The next morning, word of the marksmanship demonstration had spread throughout the station. What had begun as a small exhibition had grown into a significant event, with representatives from dozens of species gathering at the main training facility to watch the humans humiliate themselves. The training ground was an impressive facility that could simulate various planetary environments and combat scenarios. For the demonstration, a relatively simple setup had been arranged. Targets at various distances, some stationary, some moving, some partially concealed. The environment was set to mimic a standard terrestrial battlefield. Sergeant Major Krextar arrived with a team of 5 Thrakari warriors, each carrying advanced plasma rifles equipped with targeting computers, rangefinders, and environmental sensors. Their weapons looked like works of art compared to the human equipment. Sleek, humming with barely contained energy, and covered in displays showing real-time ballistic calculations. The human team looked almost primitive by comparison. 3 soldiers in standard combat gear, carrying what appeared to be simple metal and polymer constructions. Their rifles had basic optical scopes, no visible electronics, and showed the wear marks of extensive use. Staff Sergeant Martinez stepped forward first, a compact woman with intense dark eyes and steady hands. She carried an M24 sniper weapon system, a rifle that had been in service for decades. As she took her position, Krextar observed with barely concealed amusement. "That weapon appears to be entirely mechanical," he commented to his team. "No targeting computer, no environmental compensation, no smart ammunition. How do they expect to achieve any accuracy at meaningful range?" The first phase of the demonstration involved stationary targets at progressively longer distances, 500 meters, 800 meters, 1,200 meters, and finally, 1,500 meters. The alien spectators expected the humans to struggle beyond 500 meters, as that was approximately the maximum effective range of primitive kinetic weapons according to their databases. Krextar went first, his plasma rifle humming as its systems calculated wind speed, humidity, target distance, and a dozen other variables. The weapon beeped softly when optimal firing solutions were achieved. His shots were perfect. Each target struck dead center, the plasma bolts vaporizing the target material on contact. The crowd murmured appreciatively. This was exactly what they had expected from the galaxy's finest marksman. Martinez took her position without fanfare. She studied the distant targets through her scope, made minute adjustments to her rifle's position, and controlled her breathing. The training ground fell silent. Her first shot rang out with a sharp crack that seemed almost pathetic compared to the energy weapon's impressive discharges. Through the spotting scopes, observers could see the target had been struck slightly off-center. "Acceptable for primitive technology," Krextar commented loudly enough for others to hear. Martinez's second shot was dead center. Her third was dead center. Her fourth shot, at the maximum 1,500-meter target, took several seconds longer to aim, but when the rifle cracked, the distant target showed a perfect center hit. A few murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd, but most observers attributed the performance to luck or favorable conditions. The second phase introduced moving targets and environmental challenges. Artificial wind was generated, lighting conditions were altered to simulate dawn and dusk conditions, and targets moved at various speeds and patterns. This was where the aliens expected the humans to fail completely. Moving target engagement required complex calculations that their computers handled automatically. How could a primitive kinetic weapon possibly compensate for target movement, projectile travel time, and environmental factors without technological assistance? Corporal Wong stepped forward for this phase, carrying what looked like an even more basic rifle, an M110 semi-automatic sniper system. Unlike Martinez's bolt-action precision rifle, this weapon was designed for more rapid engagement of multiple targets. Krextar's performance on the moving targets was flawless. His weapon's computer tracked each target, calculated its movement pattern, and provided perfect firing solutions. Each plasma bolt struck exactly where the target would be when the energy reached its destination. Wong approached the challenge differently. He studied the target patterns for several minutes, noting their timing and movement characteristics. When he began shooting, his rifle fired in measured cadence. Crack, pause, crack, pause. Each shot required him to manually calculate where the target would be when his bullet arrived. To the aliens' growing amazement, Wong's accuracy matched Krextar's performance. Target after target fell to precisely placed shots, even though the human was doing manually what the Thrakari's computer did automatically. "Impressive concentration and calculation ability," Dr. Yixinella observed to her colleagues. "The human brain appears more adaptable than our initial assessments indicated." The final phase was designed to be the most challenging. Long-range precision shooting under adverse conditions, with partially concealed targets that required the shooter to identify and engage specific weak points. Private Thompson stepped forward for this phase, and the alien observers noticed something different about his equipment. His rifle appeared even more basic than the others, an M40A6 that looked like it had seen extensive field use. But Thompson himself moved with a confidence that seemed disproportionate to his apparent youth. The targets for this phase were sophisticated, armored mannequins with small, vulnerable areas that had to be precisely hit to register as effective shots. The challenge was designed to simulate engaging heavily protected enemies at maximum range. Krextar's advanced plasma rifle performed admirably, its targeting system identifying the vulnerable points and calculating optimal attack angles. His shots burned through the target armor at precisely the right locations. Thompson's approach was different yet again. He spent considerable time studying each target, noting the tiny gaps in armor protection, the angles that would allow his bullets to penetrate, and the environmental factors that might affect his shots. When he finally began shooting, each shot took 30 seconds or more to prepare and execute. But the results were devastating. Thompson's bullets found every vulnerable point with surgical precision, striking gaps in armor that were barely larger than the bullets themselves. More impressively, his shots seemed to achieve effects that should have been impossible with kinetic rounds, penetrating armor that should have stopped them, finding angles that seemed geometrically unlikely. "This is impossible," muttered Commander Thexaval of the Corvani. "Those kinetic projectiles should not penetrate advanced armor materials." Sarah Chen smiled as she watched the demonstration. What the aliens didn't understand was that human bullets weren't just simple chunks of metal. Earth's military had developed specialized ammunition over decades of warfare, armor-piercing rounds with tungsten cores, bullets designed to fragment and tumble upon impact, rounds that could penetrate multiple layers of protection through careful selection of materials and design. But more than the technology, what the aliens were witnessing was something they had lost in their advancement beyond kinetic weapons: the art of marksmanship. The ability to read conditions, understand ballistics, and make split-second calculations that no computer could match because they required intuition, experience, and a deep understanding of how weapons behaved in real-world conditions. As the demonstration concluded, the training ground fell unusually quiet. The human team had not just matched the performance of the galaxy's finest marksmen. In several cases, they had exceeded it, using equipment that seemed primitive by galactic standards. Admiral Zexathara approached Sarah, his 4 eyes reflecting a new respect. "Commander Chen, this demonstration has been enlightening. Perhaps we have underestimated certain aspects of human military capability." Sarah nodded professionally. "Admiral, this is just marksmanship. Our soldiers bring much more to combat situations than accurate shooting." "Such as?" "Adaptability, sir. The ability to think creatively under pressure. The capacity to succeed when technology fails or isn't available. And perhaps most importantly, the willingness to face impossible odds and find a way to win anyway." As the alien delegates filed out of the training facility, their conversations had changed significantly from the morning's dismissive chatter. The humans had proven that advanced technology wasn't always superior to skill, training, and determination. But what none of them realized yet was that this demonstration was just the beginning. Earth's soldiers had much more to show the galaxy about the art of warfare. 3 weeks after the marksmanship demonstration, the Galactic Defense Council received an emergency alert that would change everything. The Zarathi Empire, a hostile faction that had been quiet for decades, had launched a surprise attack on the mining colony of Kepler 442b. The colony's automated defenses had fallen within hours, and intelligence reports indicated the Zarathi were using new armor technology that made their soldiers nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. Admiral Zexathara stood before the emergency council session, his chitinous plates darker than usual, a sign of stress among the Corvani. "The situation is dire," he announced to the assembled delegates. "Our advance reconnaissance team attempted to retake the colony yesterday. They were completely repelled. Zarathi soldiers are wearing some form of adaptive armor that deflects plasma weapons, absorbs energy attacks, and even neutralizes quantum disruptors." General Vorthak's crystalline form flickered with agitation. "How is this possible? Our weapons have been effective against Zarathi forces for centuries." "We believe they've developed nanotechnology armor that adapts in real time to incoming energy signatures," Zexathara explained, manipulating the hologram to show battle footage. "Watch this engagement." The recording showed Galactic Defense Forces engaging Zarathi soldiers. Plasma bolts that should have been lethal simply spread harmlessly across the enemy's dark armor. Energy beams bent away, as if deflected by invisible shields. Even direct hits from heavy weapons appeared to have no effect. "Conventional forces are useless against this new armor," Zexathara continued grimly. "We need new strategies, new weapons, new approaches. The Zarathi have effectively neutralized our technological advantage." Commander Sarah Chen observed the footage with growing interest. She had been studying Zarathi tactics and technology since joining the Council, and something about their new armor sparked a memory from her military training. "Admiral," Sarah stood, drawing attention from the increasingly desperate delegates. "Has anyone attempted to engage these armored soldiers with kinetic weapons?" The question caused a moment of confused silence. Sergeant Major Krextar was the first to respond, his voice carrying disbelief. Commander, if energy weapons cannot penetrate their armor, how could primitive projectiles possibly succeed? That armor appears to be designed specifically to counter energy-based attacks, Sarah explained, studying the tactical displays. Adaptive nanotechnology that responds to electromagnetic signatures, plasma frequencies, and quantum disruptions. But kinetic weapons don't rely on any of those principles. Dr. Yixanella's bioluminescent patterns shifted to show sudden understanding. A simple physical projectile would interact with the armor through entirely different mechanisms. The nanotechnology might not be programmed to respond to purely kinetic threats. Exactly, Sarah nodded. If I'm right, their advanced armor might actually be vulnerable to the most basic form of attack, being hit by a fast-moving piece of metal. Admiral Zexthara's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. This is highly speculative, Commander. Are you suggesting we risk soldiers' lives on an untested theory? I'm suggesting we let Earth's forces test this theory, Sarah replied firmly. Give us a small insertion mission. If kinetic weapons prove ineffective, we retreat and you continue developing new energy-based solutions. But if you're right, it could change the entire strategic situation. General Vorthak completed the thought. The debate that followed was intense but brief. With conventional forces proving useless against the new Zarathi armor, even a speculative solution was worth attempting. Within 6 hours, authorization was granted for a limited Earth-led reconnaissance mission to test the kinetic weapon theory. The mission briefing took place aboard the assault transport, Determination, humanity's contribution to the galactic fleet. While not as advanced as alien vessels, the ship had been built with human principles in mind, rugged, reliable, and capable of operating when more sophisticated systems failed. Master Sergeant Rodriguez addressed the assembled team of 20 soldiers, each carrying equipment that looked primitive compared to the alien technology surrounding them. All right, people, this is what we've trained for. Intelligence suggests the Zarathi have approximately 200 soldiers holding the colony. Their armor makes them immune to energy weapons, but we're betting it won't stop good old-fashioned bullets. Staff Sergeant Martinez raised her hand. Sarge, what if we're wrong? What if their armor stops kinetic rounds too? Then we adapt and overcome, just like we always have, Rodriguez replied. But I don't think we're wrong. I've seen this kind of over-engineering before. They built armor to stop the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, but they forgot about the simplest ones. The plan was elegant in its straightforward approach. While alien forces created diversionary attacks to draw Zarathi attention, the human team would infiltrate the colony and attempt to eliminate key targets with precision sniper fire. If the kinetic weapons proved effective, they would signal for additional human forces to be deployed. Corporal Wong studied the colony schematics on his tablet. The main command post is here, in the central administrative building. Intelligence indicates their field commander is coordinating operations from the top floor. Effective range to that position from the eastern ridge is 200 meters, added Private Thompson, already calculating firing solutions. Wind patterns are favorable, and we'll have elevation advantage. The alien observers listening to the briefing were struck by how different human tactical thinking was from their own. Where other species relied heavily on technological solutions and overwhelming firepower, humans focused on positioning, timing, and precision application of force. Captain Yex Thule of the Luminari, serving as the mission's alien liaison, asked, "Commander Chen, your soldiers speak as if they expect to engage individual enemies at extreme range. Wouldn't a coordinated assault with your entire force be more effective?" Sarah smiled. "Captain, that's the difference between human tactics and galactic standard. We don't always fight fair, and we don't always fight head-on. Sometimes the best way to defeat a superior enemy is to make them afraid to show themselves." The insertion went smoothly. Human stealth technology, while less sophisticated than alien alternatives, relied on passive systems that were harder to detect. The team reached their positions around the colony without triggering Zarathi's sensors. Martinez took position on the eastern ridge, her rifle trained on the administrative building. Through her scope, she could see Zarathi soldiers moving confidently through the colony, their dark armor gleaming with an oily, adaptive sheen. They showed no concern for cover or concealment. After all, no weapon in the galactic arsenal could harm them. "Target acquired," she whispered into her communications device. "Zarathi officer on the command post balcony. Range 1,180 meters. Wind speed 2 knots from the southwest. No significant elevation change," Thompson reported from his spotting position. "Clear to engage." Martinez controlled her breathing, feeling the familiar calm that came with precision shooting. The Zarathi officer stood in plain sight, apparently giving orders to subordinates below. His armor showed the characteristic shimmer of active nanotechnology, constantly adjusting its properties in response to the environmental electromagnetic spectrum. The rifle cracked once, the sound echoing across the colony like thunder. Through the scope, Martinez watched the .50 caliber bullet strike the Zarathi officer center mass. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the alien warrior crumpled to the ground, dark fluid spreading across the balcony floor. "Confirmed kill," Martinez reported, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what had just occurred. "Kinetic penetration successful." The effect on the Zarathi forces was immediate and dramatic. Soldiers who had been moving with casual confidence suddenly dove for cover, their invincible armor apparently not so invincible after all. Panic spread through their ranks as they tried to understand how their most advanced defensive technology had been defeated by what their sensors identified as a primitive kinetic projectile. "All positions, you are cleared to engage targets of opportunity," Rodriguez commanded. "Show them what human marksmanship can do." What followed was unlike any battle the galaxy had ever seen. Zarathi soldiers, accustomed to standing in the open while energy weapons harmlessly struck their armor, found themselves facing an enemy that killed from distances they couldn't even accurately return fire to. Every time a Zarathi warrior exposed himself, a rifle crack would echo across the colony, and another supposedly invulnerable enemy would fall. Wong engaged multiple targets from his position overlooking the main square, his semi-automatic rifle dropping Zarathi soldiers faster than they could identify where the shots were coming from. Thompson, positioned in the ruins of an industrial facility, eliminated an entire patrol that had been attempting to flank the human positions. The psychological effect was devastating. The Zarathi had spent years developing armor that made them immune to every known weapon in the galaxy. They had felt untouchable, invincible. Now they were being systematically eliminated by weapons their databases classified as obsolete. Captain Thexavar, commanding the Zarathi forces, was experiencing something his species hadn't felt in generations: helplessness. "Deploy counter-sniper teams," he ordered frantically. "Use thermal imaging to locate these attackers." But human soldiers had been fighting counter-sniper battles for centuries. They knew how to mask their thermal signatures, how to change positions between shots, how to use natural cover and concealment to remain invisible to even advanced detection systems. "Sir, our sensors can't locate the enemy shooters," reported his communications officer. "They're using passive camouflage that doesn't register on our detection grids." "How many attackers are there?" "Unknown, sir. Shot analysis suggests at least 6 different firing positions, but some may be mobile." Thexvar stared at his tactical display in growing desperation. 20 of his soldiers were down, killed by an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't locate, and apparently couldn't defend against. His invincible armor was useless against these primitive kinetic weapons. Meanwhile, aboard the command ship in orbit, alien military observers watched the battle unfold with amazement. The Zarathi forces, which had effortlessly defeated galactic marines equipped with the most advanced weapons available, were being systematically destroyed by a handful of humans with what amounted to metal tubes that threw pieces of lead. "This changes everything," Admiral Zexathera muttered, watching another Zarathi position go silent. "If kinetic weapons can penetrate their armor, we need to completely revise our tactical doctrine. More than that," added General Vorthak, "this demonstrates that technological advancement can sometimes be a weakness. We became so focused on sophisticated solutions that we forgot about simple ones." Dr. Yixinella was recording everything, her scientific mind racing with implications. "The humans appear to have maintained capabilities we abandoned centuries ago. Not because their technology is superior, but because they never allowed technology to completely replace fundamental skills." On the surface, the human team was preparing for the next phase of their mission. With Zarathi forces now pinned down and demoralized, it was time to begin the actual assault on the colony's key positions. "Suppression fire on the main barracks," Rodriguez commanded. "Keep their heads down while assault teams move into position." The alien observers had expected the humans to continue their long-range engagement, but they were surprised to see the soldiers transition to close-quarters combat. Teams moved through the colony with practiced efficiency, using their sniper support to suppress enemy positions, while assault elements closed distance. What made their tactics particularly effective was the integration of different capabilities. While some soldiers provided precision long-range fire, others used shotguns and assault rifles for close-range work, and still others employed explosives and breaching tools to access fortified positions. "They fight like predators," observed Captain Yexthul, with a mix of admiration and unease. "Coordinated, patient, and absolutely ruthless in their efficiency." The Zarathi command post fell within 2 hours. Captain Thexavar, wounded by shrapnel from a human grenade, was captured along with most of his surviving officers. The supposedly impregnable colony had been retaken by a force 1/10 the size of his own, using weapons his people had considered obsolete for millennia. As the human soldiers secured the colony and began processing prisoners, Sarah Chen stood in the conquered command post, speaking with Admiral Zexathara via communications link. "The colony is secure, Admiral. Zarathi casualties, 43 killed, 87 captured. Human casualties, none killed, 2 minor injuries from falls during movement." The silence on the communication channel stretched for several seconds before Zexathara responded. "Commander, your forces have achieved something our best units considered impossible. How do we integrate this capability into our existing military structure?" "That's a complex question, Admiral. But I think the first step is recognizing that sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones, and sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution." "What do you recommend for dealing with future Zarathi advances?" "They will certainly adapt their armor to defend against kinetic weapons." Sarah smiled grimly. "Then we'll adapt too. That's what humans do. We find ways to win even when the odds are against us. Give us time, and we'll show you tactics these aliens have never imagined." As news of the victory spread through galactic communication networks, something fundamental had changed in how other species viewed humanity. Earth's soldiers weren't just primitive warriors with outdated equipment. They were specialists in a form of warfare that the galaxy had forgotten existed. But the Zarathi Empire was vast, and their defeat at Kepler 442b was just the beginning of a conflict that would test everything humans thought they knew about galactic warfare.